And let me ask you a simple question. Do you want to get smarter, or do you just want to look like it? Because there's a big difference. Looking smart is about pretending, sounding intelligent, impressing people, but being smart, actually building a sharper mind, takes daily effort. And most people aren't doing it, not because they can't, but because they never made it a priority. They think intelligence is fixed. They think it's something you're born with. But that's a lie. You get smarter when you do things every day that train your brain to think better, faster, and clearer. You want to know how to get ahead in life? Learn how to think. You want to lead, grow, and build something powerful? Master your mind. Because the truth is, the world doesn't belong to the people with the best intentions. It belongs to the people with the best habits. And today, you're going to learn the 15 habits that make you smarter every single day. Not someday, not eventually, every single day. Habits that sharpen your focus, stretch your mind, and give you the edge most people will never have because they never chose to build it. Let's get into it. Let's level up. Let's get smart on purpose. You don't wake up with a smarter brain just because you feel like it. Intelligence isn't some trophy you win once and carry forever. It's like a muscle. It's like a habit, something you have to train, nourish, and protect every single day. That's why the idea that smart people are simply born that way is not only outdated, it's dangerous. Because it gives people an excuse to settle. It lets people off the hook. And that mindset, it keeps you stuck. If you want to be smarter, sharper, more mentally agile, it's not about waiting for some magical transformation. It's about recognizing that intelligence is daily maintenance. It's not a one-time gift. Just like you shower to stay clean, brush your teeth to stay fresh, and eat to stay energized, you need to feed your brain to stay sharp. When you skip the mental reps, when you let days go by without challenging your thoughts or expanding your understanding, your brain starts to slow down. And you won't even notice it happening until life demands clarity or confidence or insight, and you're not ready. The truth is, you don't need more time. You don't need more talent. You need a decision to start treating your brain like it matters, a decision to stop scrolling your way through life and start studying your way to a better one. Because here's the reality. Your current level of thinking has built your current life. If you want something more, something better, something sharper, you need to upgrade how you think. This means reading instead of binge watching. It means journaling instead of complaining. It means spending more time around people who challenge your thoughts and less time around people who drain your energy. It means asking deeper questions, paying attention, showing up with the mindset of a learner, not a critic. Smart people aren't perfect, they're consistent. They don't wait to feel motivated. They've created a system of habits that makes growth automatic. And one of the most powerful habits, feeding your brain with purpose. Every single day is a new opportunity to sharpen the way you think. Not once a week, not when it's convenient, daily. Because when you skip it, when you assume your intelligence will just carry you through, that's when you start falling behind. Not in a dramatic way, but slowly, silently. Your memory gets a little fuzzier. Your focus gets a little weaker. Your ability to solve problems starts to suffer. Not because you're not capable, but because you stopped training. Let's talk about what that training looks like. It looks like reading books that challenge your current beliefs. It looks like reflecting on your decisions. It looks like engaging in conversations that stretch you. It looks like writing down what you're learning so you can go deeper. It looks like protecting your attention like it's sacred, because it is. The people who are growing mentally, emotionally, and intellectually, these are not the people with easier lives. They're the people with better mental habits. You've got to stop thinking that intelligence is passive. It's active. It requires you to show up every single day. Even if it's just for 15 minutes, even if it's just one article, one podcast, one page of notes, what matters is that you are choosing growth over comfort. Because the people who do this consistently, they become unstoppable. Not because they know everything, but because they know how to learn anything. And that right there, that's the advantage. You've got to decide that your brain is your most valuable asset, not your phone, not your resume, not your bank account, your mind, because everything flows from how you think, your relationships, your career, your health, your confidence, your ability to bounce back from failure. It all starts and ends with your brain. And if you treat it with discipline, with respect, with intention, your life will change. Slowly, yes. Silently, maybe, but permanently. So the next time you're tempted to say you're just not that smart, stop. You are what you do consistently. And if you start feeding your mind every day, you will feel it. You'll notice your thinking getting clearer. You'll solve problems faster. You'll respond to challenges with calm instead of panic, because you've built a mind that is strong, flexible, and focused. That's not luck. That's not talent. That's training. And it starts with a choice. Not a big one, a small one. A simple shift in how you approach your day. Because if you truly want to get smarter, it's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters every day on purpose. You've probably been told that some people are just born smart, that intelligence is something you either have or you don't, and maybe you've even believed it. But that belief is exactly what holds most people back from becoming what they're fully capable of. Because the truth is, what makes someone intelligent over time isn't their natural ability, it's their daily discipline. It's the set of choices they make when no one is watching. It's the habits they repeat long after the motivation fades. Raw talent is great, but without consistent effort, it gets stale. It plateaus, it fades out. Think about the kids in school who were labeled gifted or bright. Some of them burned out early, not because they weren't smart, but because they relied too much on what came easily to them. They never learned how to build themselves when things got hard. That's where discipline kicks in. That's where habits step up, because talent is what you start with. Discipline is what keeps you in the game. Look around at the most successful thinkers, creators, leaders. They're not necessarily the ones with the highest IQ. They're the ones who built a process, a rhythm, a routine. They put learning on their calendar like it's a meeting with their future. They don't wait for inspiration. They don't wait for someone else to push them. They know that every single day is an opportunity to sharpen their thinking, to upgrade their decision making, to stretch their understanding. And here's the hard truth. Discipline is not glamorous. It's not Instagrammable. It's not loud. It's quiet, repetitive, often boring work. It's choosing to read instead of scroll. It's waking up 30 minutes earlier to write down your thoughts. It's listening to a podcast that challenges you instead of replaying the same playlist you've heard 100 times. It's choosing focus over distraction, not once, but over and over again. That's the difference between someone who stays stuck and someone who rises. The smartest people in any room are rarely the loudest. They're the most consistent. They don't wait to feel ready. They create readiness through action. They don't avoid failure. They study it. They use it. They learn from it. They don't need to prove they're intelligent. They're too busy becoming more intelligent. And here's something most people never understand. Discipline doesn't just keep you committed to the process, it changes how your brain works. It literally rewires your neural pathways. The more you discipline yourself to do the right things, like reading, reflecting, sleeping well, asking questions, moving your body, the easier those behaviors become. You're not just changing what you do, you're changing what you believe you're capable of. Now let's talk about the people who wait for motivation. They wait to feel like it. They only read when they're inspired. They only journal when life feels heavy. They only focus when a deadline forces them to. Those people live on a roller coaster. They have flashes of brilliance, but no structure. They have ideas, but no follow through. And eventually they look back and wonder why their potential never turned into progress. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. That's what makes it powerful. You can be tired, overwhelmed, distracted, and still show up for your brain. That's how compound growth happens. One smart choice today might not change your life, but 10 smart choices repeated every week for 6 months, that'll make you unrecognizable. And let's not pretend it's easy. It's not. You'll get bored, you'll get tired, you'll get discouraged. That's part of the process. But if you push through those moments and stick with the habits that matter, something incredible happens. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to show up differently. You stop waiting to be rescued. You stop making excuses. You become the kind of person who doesn't just wish for a better mind, you build it. You can have all the raw talent in the world, but if you don't put in the daily work to protect, sharpen, and challenge your mind, that talent will go to waste. Discipline isn't just a tool, it's the gatekeeper to intelligence. It's the thing that separates high performers from high potential. And the best part? It's not genetic, it's a choice. Every day, you get to decide what kind of mind you're building. So the next time you think about becoming smarter, don't look at how intelligent someone else appears to be. Look at what they do every day. Look at their systems. Look at their habits. Do they read? Do they reflect? Do they listen more than they talk? Do they show up even when it's hard? That's how intelligence is built. Not in one big leap, but in thousands of small, disciplined steps. You don't need to be the most talented. You just need to be consistent, outwork your excuses, outlast your distractions, and outdiscipline your old self. Because the mind you want to build is already possible, but it won't happen by accident. It will happen when you show up for it on purpose every single day. Repetition and reflection build long-term intelligence. It's not about how much you know in a moment. It's about how deeply you've processed what you've learned over time. Think about this. How many times have you read something powerful, felt inspired, and then forgot it a week later? That's because knowledge without repetition fades, and reflection without intention becomes daydreaming. You want to build a smarter mind? Start doing the hard, boring, simple things. Revisit what you learn, rehearse it, write about it, talk about it, apply it in the smallest possible way, because the brain doesn't keep what it doesn't practice. Every single piece of wisdom you want to hold on to, every concept, tool, strategy, it needs repetition. That's how neural pathways are built. That's how memory works. Your brain is a muscle. You don't lift a weight once and get strong. You lift it again and again. That's exactly what happens when you revisit a book, rewatch a lecture, or reread your journal. Repetition tells your mind this matters. Save it. But here's the part most people miss. Repetition without reflection is useless. You can reread the same book 100 times and still not grow if you never stop to ask, what does this mean to me? How does this apply to my life? Reflection is the secret ingredient that turns information into transformation. It forces you to pause and digest. It makes you slow down in a world that keeps pushing you to scroll, click, move. Reflection is where you ask better questions. What did I just learn? Where have I seen this show up in my life? Why haven't I been applying it? Who do I become if I start living this out daily? This is how intelligence gets layered. It's not from skimming quotes or sharing Instagram posts. It's from taking one truth and sinking into it deeply until it becomes part of how you think, how you act, how you lead. Let me give you an example. Say you read about emotional regulation. It hits you, makes sense, but unless you stop and reflect, when do I usually lose control? What triggers me? What patterns do I keep repeating? Then you're not actually getting smarter. You're just nodding at ideas without living them. And here's the kicker. Intelligence that doesn't show up in your behavior is wasted potential. The smartest people aren't just thinkers. They're appliers. They know how to loop back, reflect, and upgrade their operating system regularly. Now imagine you did this with every area of your life. Finance, communication, focus, discipline. You didn't just read once. You didn't just watch a video and move on. You studied. You came back to it. You experimented with it. You evaluated it. You asked yourself, is this working? Do I need to tweak something? That's the process. That's how intelligence stacks over time. It becomes compound interest for your brain. You don't need 100 new ideas. You need to go deeper with 5. You don't need a stack of unread books. You need to revisit the few that shook you the most. Every time you reread a great book, you read it with new eyes, from a new place in life. That's reflection. That's growth. The words didn't change, you did. And that's what makes you smarter, not just having the knowledge, but being willing to sit with it, absorb it, struggle with it, and eventually integrate it. If you're serious about being the smartest version of yourself, stop chasing the next thing and start reflecting on what you already have. Go back to your notes. Reread that journal entry. Ask yourself hard questions. Track how your understanding is evolving. Intelligence is like sculpting. It's shaped by every pass, every chisel, every moment you come back to the same truth and see it more clearly. This is where discipline meets curiosity. This is where you stop consuming and start transforming. And if you do this consistently, repetition and reflection, you won't just feel smarter, you'll be smarter. You'll think faster, decide better, and live with more wisdom than you ever thought possible. The truth is, the people who rise above aren't those who know everything. They're the ones who know how to make what they've learned stick. Your brain is a direct reflection of your routine. It's not some separate entity that functions on its own rules. It doesn't just run on talent, motivation, or potential. It runs on what you feed it, what you repeat, what you surround it with. Every single thought you have, every decision you make, every moment of clarity or confusion, it's all coming from the patterns you live by daily. Let's get honest. If your routine is chaotic, your thinking will be too. If you start your day scrolling through social media, skipping breakfast, rushing out the door without a clear plan, your brain doesn't stand a chance of performing at its peak. You're conditioning it to live in survival mode, reactive, foggy, distracted. That becomes your mental baseline. You're not setting yourself up to think, create, or lead. You're setting yourself up to simply get by. But what happens when you flip that pattern? What happens when your routine becomes intentional? Everything changes. Suddenly your brain has structure. It has rhythm. It knows what to expect and when to fire. You're not just more productive, you're more powerful. You can focus longer, solve problems faster, and think deeper. Why? Because your brain isn't constantly being hijacked by confusion and clutter. It's being trained to operate in flow. The food you eat, it matters. Junk in, junk out. If your breakfast is loaded with sugar and your lunch is whatever you can grab while multitasking, your brain doesn't get the fuel it needs. Blood sugar crashes lead to brain crashes. You can't think clearly when your body is fighting to stay balanced. But when you start choosing foods that support brain function, clean proteins, healthy fats, complex carbs, your brain responds, your memory sharpens, your mood stabilizes, your thoughts become more coherent. That's not motivation. That's biochemistry working for you. Then there's sleep. You think skipping sleep makes you more productive? It makes you sloppy. It makes you forgetful. It makes you impulsive. Your brain needs rest to consolidate memory, process emotion, and detox from the stress of the day. When you rob yourself of sleep, you're robbing your brain of its reset button. No routine that sacrifices sleep will ever support high-level thinking. It just won't. Now think about what you consume beyond food. What kind of information are you feeding your brain? If your routine includes hours of gossip, negative news cycles, mindless entertainment, you're programming your mind to stay distracted, reactive, and shallow. But if your routine includes reading, learning, listening to empowering content, engaging with intelligent people, You're filling your brain with raw material it can actually use. That's when connections form. That's when creativity kicks in. That's when solutions start coming to you in the shower or while you walk. Not because you forced them, but because you've trained your brain to stay engaged with useful input. Your schedule matters too. If you're living in chaos with no structure, no priorities, no plan, you are burning mental energy every hour just trying to stay afloat. But a focused routine, it builds mental momentum. When your day is structured around high-impact actions, morning movement, focused work blocks, intentional breaks, consistent shutdown rituals, your brain doesn't waste energy switching between tasks or wondering what to do next. It just gets to work efficiently, effectively, and consistently. Even your environment plays a role. If your workspace is cluttered, noisy, filled with distractions, your brain has to filter out all that input just to focus. That's mental exhaustion before you even begin. But a clean, calm, organized space, that's a signal to your brain it's time to focus, it's time to create, it's time to rise. So let's be real. If your thinking is slow, scattered, and unfocused, don't blame your brain. Check your routine. How you live is how you think. Your daily habits are the software your brain is running. And if that software is full of bugs, don't be surprised when the system keeps crashing. The good news? You can rewrite that code. You can create a routine that builds mental clarity instead of destroying it. You can wake up with a plan, fuel your body with intention, feed your mind with wisdom, protect your time with boundaries, move your body, rest deeply, reflect consistently. That kind of routine doesn't just make you smarter, it makes you unstoppable. Because when your routine supports your mind supports your mission. You stop reacting, you start creating, you stop doubting, you start deciding, you stop drifting, you start directing. That's what being smarter every day looks like. Not more effort, more alignment, not more hustle, more intention. Your brain is waiting. Train it, challenge it, respect it. And it will show you just how powerful it was meant to be. You are what you consume, not just in terms of food, but in every single way that information, energy, and influence enter your life. What you watch, what you listen to, the conversations you have, the content you scroll through on your phone, the music in your ears, the books you read or don't read, it's all shaping your brain, your thoughts, and your emotional state. And the truth is, your brain doesn't get to filter out the garbage. It just absorbs. Everything you feed it becomes part of your inner world. That's why this habit matters so much. Because every single day, you're either programming yourself for growth or conditioning yourself to settle. There's no in between. Start paying attention to what you're letting in. When you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, what's the first thing you see? Drama, outrage, comparison, noise. That's not harmless. That's input. And that input shapes the way your brain fires for the rest of the day. It builds the foundation for how you make decisions, how you react, how you focus. Smart people are intentional about what they consume. They don't fill their minds with distractions and expect to be productive. They don't watch pointless content and expect deep insights. They don't keep toxic people in their lives and expect mental peace. What you allow in is what your mind will mirror. Garbage in, garbage out. If you want to become someone who is focused, sharp, and emotionally intelligent, start with your information diet. Audit your feeds. Seriously. Go through your social media and ask yourself, is this helping me grow or is this making me numb, distracted, and reactive? You wouldn't put trash into your body and expect to feel healthy. So why are you feeding your brain with negativity, fear, and shallow content and expecting to feel clear-headed and motivated? Now let's talk about the people around you, the conversations you engage in, the energy you absorb from others. This is also part of your mental consumption. When you spend time with people who complain constantly, who gossip, who always have something negative to say, guess what happens? that energy becomes part of your thought patterns. It starts to shift how you see the world. You begin to think smaller, doubt more, fear more. But when you're around people who challenge you, who talk about ideas, who push you to grow, that's when your brain starts working differently. It stretches, it activates higher level thinking. So yes, your environment matters more than you think. And then there's content, books, podcasts, lectures, courses. Most people say they don't have time to read or learn, but they somehow have 2 hours to scroll social media, binge Netflix, and get lost in clickbait videos. Don't tell yourself you're too busy. You're just not prioritizing wisely. Replace 30 minutes of scrolling with a podcast. Swap one episode of a show for 10 pages of a book. Listen to an audiobook while you cook, clean, or commute. Learning is no longer limited to classrooms. It's everywhere if you choose to engage with it. Music and audio also impact you more than you realize. The lyrics you hear repeatedly become subconscious programming. If it's all about heartbreak, chaos, violence, or materialism, don't be surprised when your energy starts to reflect that same chaos. Start choosing music that lifts your mood, boosts your energy, fuels your focus. That doesn't mean everything needs to be spiritual or motivational, but it does mean being intentional, because what you hear repeatedly becomes part of your internal dialogue. And don't overlook silence. Silence is also a form of consumption. Creating space where you're not taking in external noise gives your mind a chance to process, reflect, and reset. Most people avoid silence because it forces them to face their thoughts, but that's exactly why it's powerful. In silence, your brain gets to breathe, and when your mind breathes, it creates. Clarity is born in quiet. Here's the hard truth. If you feel mentally foggy, unmotivated, constantly comparing yourself to others, overwhelmed by anxiety, it might not be your personality. It might be your consumption. What you allow into your mental space is shaping who you are becoming. Every podcast, every video, every conversation, every scroll, it's building or breaking your mind. Choose wisely. If you want to get smarter every day, don't just read books, read your environment. Don't just watch educational content, watch your habits. Start filtering. Start curating. You are not passive in this. You are the gatekeeper. Your mind is powerful, but only if you fuel it with powerful things. So the next time you're scrolling, watching, or listening, ask yourself one simple question. Is this making me better or making me weaker? And if the answer isn't aligned with growth, then it's time to make a new choice. Because you don't just become smart. You build it one input at a time, every day, relentlessly, intentionally, with focus, with discipline, with clarity. And it starts now. Distraction is the enemy of depth. That's not just a catchy phrase, it's a warning. And if you don't take it seriously, it will quietly destroy your ability to think, learn, create, and grow. You can have all the potential in the world, but if your focus is fractured, that potential goes nowhere. The modern world isn't just full of distractions, it's built on them. Notifications, social media, email, endless tabs open on your screen, background noise playing nonstop. Your attention is being pulled in 1,000 directions every single minute. And if you don't take control of it, the world will gladly steal it from you. Every time you switch from one task to another, your brain has to recalibrate. It has to shift gears. And that shift doesn't happen instantly. It costs you mental energy, time, and clarity. It's called cognitive switching cost, and it's real. You think you're being productive because you're juggling multiple things at once, but the truth is, you're draining your brain, training it to never go deep, never focus, never build true, smart people. The kind who solve problems, lead teams, invent things, write books, build businesses. They protect their focus like it's gold, because it is. Focus is where your intelligence sharpens. It's where your best ideas come from. It's where strategy lives. You cannot think deeply if your mind is constantly jumping between shallow thoughts. You can read all the books you want, listen to all the podcasts, watch all the TED Talks, but if you can't sit still and concentrate for more than 10 minutes without reaching for your phone, you're not growing, you're just consuming. And there's a massive difference between consumption and learning. Learning requires depth. It requires quiet. It requires focus. Your brain is like a muscle. It gets stronger when you push it to stay with one thing long enough to truly understand it. If you're constantly checking texts, swiping reels, jumping from tab to tab, you're training your mind to live in the shallow end of the pool. And no real wisdom, no real insight lives in the shallow end. This is why distraction is so dangerous. It doesn't just waste your time, it weakens your mind. It makes you impatient. It trains you to expect constant stimulation. It rewires your brain to avoid challenge and chase convenience. Over time, that shows up in everything: your career, your conversations, your relationships, your personal goals. You get stuck, not because you're not capable, but because you can't stay with a thought long enough to solve the problem or pursue the opportunity. If you want to become someone who thinks better, works smarter, and shows up with real clarity, you need to train your brain to stay with something long enough to go deep. That means turning off notifications. That means blocking time where you do one thing and one thing only. That means giving yourself permission to be unavailable, unreachable, and fully immersed. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first. You'll crave distraction. Your brain will itch for a dopamine hit. But that discomfort, that's the withdrawal. That's the mental detox. That's your mind waking up from years of being overstimulated. The most powerful people in the world don't let distractions control them. They control what they give their energy to. They don't let the outside world dictate how they spend their focus. They choose it with intention, with purpose. And that's exactly what you need to do if you're serious about getting smarter every day. So ask yourself, where is your focus leaking? What meaningless distractions have you normalized? How many times a day are you breaking your own concentration just to feel busy? You don't need more hours in the day. You need to reclaim the hours you already have. Imagine what would happen if you took just 1 hour a day, removed all distractions, and went deep on something that mattered. Reading, creating, thinking, planning. That 1 hour would change your life. And it wouldn't take years. You'd start to feel the shift in a week. Your thinking would sharpen, your memory would improve, your confidence would grow. Why? Because you're not living in the chaos anymore. You're operating from clarity. You don't need to escape the modern world. You just need to stop letting it hijack your mind. You can't eliminate every distraction, but you can dominate your relationship with them. You can set rules. You can build boundaries. You can train yourself to work with deep intention. That's what smart people do. That's how they win. Because intelligence isn't just about what you know. It's about your ability to go deep when others stay shallow, to think clearly when others are overwhelmed, to make decisions with conviction when others are frozen in noise. And that power, the power of deep focus, starts with the moment you stop chasing distraction and start chasing depth. Your brain isn't a machine that runs on motivation or mindset alone. It's biology, it's chemistry, it's electricity. And here's the truth nobody wants to hear. You can have the most ambitious goals in the world, the best intentions, the smartest strategies, and still underperform mentally if you're not treating your body like it matters. You cannot think clearly when your brain is exhausted. You can't problem solve when your body is inflamed. You can't stay disciplined when your system is constantly crashing. Sleep, food, and movement, these aren't optional. They are the foundation. The moment you start treating your body like a tool to support your intelligence instead of something separate from it, everything changes. People underestimate how physical energy fuels mental clarity. You want to be sharper? Start by sleeping better. Start by moving more. Start by feeding yourself with the kind of fuel your brain was actually designed to run on. Let's start with sleep. It's not just rest, it's repair. When you sleep, your brain literally flushes out toxins, it reorganizes information, it files your memories, it stabilizes your emotions, it sharpens your focus. Yet what do most people do? They trade sleep for late night scrolling. They cut rest short to hustle harder, and then they wonder why they feel foggy, moody, overwhelmed, and unmotivated. Your brain is begging for recovery time, not because you're lazy, because it's science. You can't function at a high level without real rest. You don't need to earn sleep, you need to protect it like your future depends on it, because it does. Now think about what you eat. Your brain is the hungriest organ in your body. It burns energy faster than anything else, and if you're constantly feeding it processed sugar, greasy takeout, and caffeine to survive the day, you're actually slowing it down. You're not giving your mind fuel, you're giving it friction. Food isn't just calories, it's information. What you put in your body communicates with your brain. Some foods improve memory, increase alertness, and reduce anxiety. Others trigger crashes, brain fog, and inflammation that makes clear thinking almost impossible. It's not about being perfect with your nutrition, it's about being intentional. Add one real, whole, unprocessed meal into your day and notice what changes. Drink more water than you think you need. Replace one coffee with a green smoothie or just a piece of fruit. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It needs to be consistent. This isn't about losing weight. This is about gaining brain power. And let's not ignore movement, not for the sake of looking fit, but for the sake of firing up your brain. Physical activity literally boosts neurochemicals that help you focus, retain information, and fight off mental fatigue. A 10-minute walk can do more for your clarity than 2 hours of trying to push through burnout. Movement oxygenates your brain. It boosts serotonin. It sharpens memory. It triggers creativity. Yet most people only move when they're trying to fix how they look in the mirror. That's the wrong game. You don't move for looks. You move for clarity, for confidence, for discipline, because your brain performs better when your body is in motion. You want a sharper mind? Get outside, stretch in the morning, do body weight workouts in your room, dance for 5 minutes, run up the stairs, whatever it takes. Just get out of your chair and get your blood flowing, because stillness might be safe, but it kills your fire. You have to stop separating your physical habits from your mental performance. They are not separate worlds. They are a single system. Everything you eat, every hour you sleep, every movement you make, it all stacks. It either stacks toward strength, clarity, and momentum, or it stacks toward fatigue, fog, and frustration. This is the part that most people skip. They think being smart is about reading more books, listening to more podcasts, memorizing more facts. And yes, that stuff matters. But if your brain is running on fumes, none of it sticks, none of it sparks, none of it sustains. You don't need more content. You need more capacity. You need to feel good in your body so you can perform better with your mind. You need the kind of fuel that supports stamina, the kind of movement that activates your focus, the kind of rest that helps your brain recover, repair, and relaunch every single day. This isn't complicated. You know what makes you feel sharp. You know when you've slept well. You know when your body is hydrated and your brain is alive. And you know when you're dragging because of what you didn't do the night before. Stop pretending that how you treat your body doesn't matter. It's the base layer for everything you're trying to build. If you want to be the kind of person who shows up sharp, who makes better decisions, who sees things clearly under pressure, it starts here. Sleep with discipline. Eat with purpose, move with intention, and watch what happens to your brain power, your creativity, your motivation, your fire. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight, but you do need to start showing up for your body like your brain depends on it, because it does. Success always leaves behind a trail of patterns. Smart people know how to look for them. They don't just experience life, they study it. They don't just go through things, they grow through them by paying close attention. You want to get smarter? Start treating the world like your classroom. Every person you meet, every challenge you face, every mistake you make, it's all data. Most people miss the lesson because they're moving too fast or reacting emotionally. But if you slow down and look deeper, you'll start to see that everything is connected. The way people behave, the decisions that lead to success or failure, the common threads in books, conversations, and even your own thinking. There's a pattern in all of it. Let's say you failed at something recently. Maybe a relationship ended, maybe you lost a job, maybe you launched something and it didn't go anywhere. The average person says, that sucked, and moves on. But the smart person says, what exactly happened here? They look at the sequence of events, they trace the emotions involved, they question their assumptions. They don't let the moment pass without extracting a principle they can carry forward. That's how intelligence compounds, not from the win, but from the breakdown of every loss. Look at successful people in any field. Business, sports, art, science. You'll notice they don't just repeat actions, they analyze outcomes. They study tapes, they read biographies, they break down the why behind every win. They collect strategies, habits, and decision-making frameworks. They don't just take advice, they reverse engineer results. That's the mindset that builds real intelligence. You look for clues, not just inspiration. You pay attention to what people are doing, not just what they say. Even when you're reading a book, the smart person doesn't just flip through chapters. They look at what the author is teaching, what patterns keep showing up across different books and how it applies to their life. If you read 5 books on leadership and you start to see the same principle repeated, that's not just a coincidence. That's a clue. If you hear 3 successful people talk about how they journal every morning, that's a pattern worth testing. When something shows up again and again across disciplines, that's not fluff. It's a signal. People who grow intellectually make it a habit to document their observations. They keep learning logs. They take notes during podcasts. They write down quotes from mentors. Why? Because patterns only become visible when you start connecting the dots. And you can't connect dots if you're not collecting them. The brain isn't designed to hold everything. It's designed to process, analyze, and apply. Smart people keep systems that help them capture and reflect because they know that brilliance doesn't come from memory, it comes from awareness. You're already surrounded by 100 lessons every day. The way your boss handles conflict, the way your friend sets boundaries, the way a YouTuber tells a story that gets millions of views, the way you feel after using your phone for 3 hours. These are not random moments. These are case studies waiting to be examined. But most people are too busy being distracted or defensive to see it. They live reactively. One of the fastest ways to raise your intelligence is to pick one area of life and start tracking it like an experiment. Say you want to get better at communication. Start observing how people talk in meetings. Start journaling about how conversations made you feel. Start studying books or watching talks from great communicators. What do they all do that average people don't? That's where the patterns live. And once you find a pattern, test it, try it, apply it. That's how information becomes transformation. There's a reason top performers keep notebooks, debrief after every performance, and obsess over the details. They're not chasing perfection, they're chasing precision. They know that greatness is not one big move, it's a series of tiny corrections made by people who paid close attention. Every great entrepreneur learned from their past businesses. Every great athlete studies their competition. Every great speaker watches their own footage. That's not an accident. That's pattern recognition in motion. The biggest mistake people make is thinking that intelligence is passive, that you can just watch a video, read a book, or listen to someone speak and magically become smarter. That's not how it works. Intelligence is active. It's messy. It's built through analysis, reflection, and relentless observation.